humanitarian aid organization that me and my brother co-founded, along with the rest of our family members. And what we do, kind of in a nutshell, is right now internationally, we're working in the country of Guatemala, and we provide houses and food and clothing, shoes, but most importantly, we're providing the gospel to the people of Guatemala. And we're working in a little town called Santa Rita, which has about 55,000 people in it. And we're just kind of to saturate that area right now before moving out to other areas.
What was the inspiration, or let me rephrase it, I know what the inspiration is. How did the inspiration come upon you to start this?
Well, the inspiration was my dad, who was sitting beside me since 1992. My dad took his first mission trip then, and since then has been all over the world. And during the time that, as I was growing older, I watched him from afar. I was able to participate in some, but not like what he was doing. So once, about 7 years ago, I guess, I had what I call a God dream. And that's really how the Walk a Mile project started for me, is that I told my wife after it happened and what I saw. And then I said, well, I'm going to call my brother and just share my heart. And so I had lunch with my brother and his wife, and halfway through our conversation, he started finishing my sentences. So I said, okay, what's going on? He said, well, I had a God dream also. And we started doing the timeline and come to find out that it was about 2 weeks apart. So we knew that was, all right, this is it. So we scheduled a sit-down lunch with my dad because we didn't know what we were doing, to say the least. So we knew that he did. And he was working with another organization and helping lead trips for them. And unbeknownst to us, upon lunchtime, he told us that my mom and him had been praying for about 6 months now for something like this to happen.
Yeah.
So we just all knew as a family that it was just what we were meant to do.
And Eddie, as a father, we all, especially those who have sons, have these dreams or aspirations maybe of our sons following in our footsteps one day. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not good, but when you're dealing with such a higher calling here, when you're talking about sharing the gospel, it had to make you feel just wonderful.
It was absolutely amazing, Dan. We have I started going to other countries on mission trips in 1992. In November of 92, I took my first mission trip to Moscow, Russia, which was amazing, and it really changed my life during that time. And because I saw people that didn't even have a Bible during those days, and communist days, and it was really transforming. So over this 26-year period, our children have been able to experience going to Russia and going to Guatemala, to Mexico, and other countries that we've been to. And so for the last 12 years, we have focused in on Guatemala, and our children have really just jumped on board, and my wife and I couldn't be any more excited about it.
The work that you're doing there, when you initially started going there, Heath, how did the people of that particular area in Guatemala accept you? How receptive were they to the gospel, and how, if any, has that changed in the time since?
Well, Guatemalans are they're outside of the cities, or your main cities, in the little towns where we work at. It's a very mountainous area, very similar to what you kind of see here at Furman. But everything that they do is done by hand. So they grow everything that they have. And what they have is not a lot. So they're very grateful for anything and everything that you can do for them. But the people of Guatemala, what I've noticed is that they're looking for a helping hand, not a handout.
Right.
So they're very willing to, if you're like when we go in, we build them a house, then they're very willing to jump in and help us at the drop of a hat. and just whatever you can provide, whether it's a pair of shoes, a pair of flip-flops, or a bag of food, then they're very, very open.
Yeah.
And they welcome us with loving arms, really.
But Eddie, how did you earn the trust of the people? I mean, that's the first step.
It is
relationship.
It is. It's absolutely that. We work with an organization that's there. That's a pastor, and he has over 110 churches that are in Guatemala.
Mm-hmm.
So he is the person that we really work with in his organization, and they go out into the village and pick out the church, the people for the homes to be built, and so they have knowledge of their people. So we're just really an extended arm for their group. And so when we go in, we'll be going in June 21st through 28th. Our goal is to build 20 homes, to feed 4 villages, and to pass out clothes and shoes and flip-flops, and give out gospel booklets and Bibles, and the time that we're there. And in that time frame, that's 5 days of building. We'll build 20 homes during that time.
In 5 days?
In 5 days.
And how many people were we talking about?
There'll be 20 people doing that in that 5-day period, and we will work. I mean, it is work, and but it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Because you're helping people who, for instance, a home costs $500 to build, and it's a small home. It's a 12 by 17. It's a wood frame, and then it has tin on the top and on the sides,
mm-hmm.
and on the front, and then it has a 2-inch concrete floor. And to us, it would be a shed, but to them, it's a Taj Mahal, because they live on dirt floors. And in their, like right now, it's a rainy season for them in Guatemala.
It's a rainy season for us, too.
Yeah,
it has been.
You, man. And so it is just, the water will flow through their house.
Mm-hmm.
And one dear lady, she said one time, now I have a home that water will not be able to get into my home. And she was about 75 years old, and when we built her a home. But they have told us this many times, Dan, is this: we could have never, ever saved $500. So $500 to them is no different than $500,000 to us. And but it means everything to them.
We are visiting with Heath Burdette and his father, Eddie, and talking about the Walk a Mile project, which we tell you about every day here on the show, or at least the days that we have a show. This is the first one we've done in a week because of the Southern Conference Baseball Tournament. But again, the website, thewhamproject.org, is the place to go to get more information there. Besides actually boots on the ground in Guatemala, the other aspect of what you do is training people to do what you do, right?
Right. Yeah, we our ultimate goal is with our immediate family members. I mean, there's only so many of us. Is to actually train up leaders with other churches or those that participate with us, to where you can't always go as the head front or the president. So you always want to have somebody on the ground that's able to continue doing what you're doing. So you just show them. We're just showing people what we've learned pretty much from my dad and other experiences.
And have you found that you have a lot of people who are willing to come and learn so they can go and do some of these things?
Yes, sir. We stay very busy. We have a number of churches that go with us. Matter of fact, we are taking a church in July from Kentucky. We took a church from Kentucky in March to go and do medical missions and build homes and all too. So it's the neatest thing to see people, because they really, when they go on their first trip, they really don't have what's going to happen, and they really don't understand. But after that first day, oh man, they just lock in, and it's on from that point. And the Guatemalans are such a hard-working people. They're the hardest-working people. They're the strongest people I have been around. They build, or they grow their corn, and for them to on the side of a mountain. So in front of us here at Furman, looking at this mountain where all the trees are, well, that would be a cornfield. from top to bottom, and they do it all by hand. There's no machinery that you could put up there. They do it all by hand, and they use a hoe, not like ours, which is about that wide. They have a hoe that's about that wide, and I brought one home to my dad one year. And I said, "This is the hoe that you need to use in your garden." And he said, "You've lost your mind." so it was pretty funny. But hardworking people, greatest people, just grateful people, and thankful people for what God does for them and for what God's people do for them.
We're visiting with Heath directly beside me, and Eddie, his father, part of the Burdette family and the Walk a Mile project, who they themselves spend a lot of time in Guatemala. You've been hearing what they do there, and they also train and equip other people to go many different places. You know, my wife has been to the Dominican once. She's been to Mexico 3 or 4 times. She and I together last summer went to Calgary, which is a totally different kind of trip, because we were working with a church plant in a very affluent neighborhood. And it's interesting, those are the people a lot of times that are the hardest to reach, because they've got everything and feel like they don't need God. Whereas you go into, like where she went in the mountains of Mexico, where you guys are doing in Guatemala, these are poor people who have nothing.
Right.
They absolutely have nothing. So the dynamic is different, but the need, the spiritual need, is exactly the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We may not have the same amount of money. We may not live in the same type homes. We may not have the same type vehicles and those kind of things. But our need for Christ is for everybody. Everybody's the same at the foot of the cross. And but we find out, like in Guatemala, for instance, these people are they're the type of people, for instance, if they live in a village, if they live in this area of Greenville, then most of the people will never leave a 10-mile radius of their village. So what they did 50 years ago in gardening and taking care of their family and all, that's exactly what they're doing today. And it doesn't change from generation to generation. It's pretty wild. But it's the neatest thing, because you're dealing with people that have a kind heart. They have a heart of reception, but a heart of thankfulness. And it's tough for them, because we all have pride. We all want to, do it ourselves, and that kind of deal. But they don't have that capability of doing that. And most of them is that in the village, when you get into the mountains, they only have like a 3rd grade education, but they're hard workers. I mean, they don't sit in the house and they have to get out in the fields. They have to get out there and work and to raise their corn to where they can have the tortillas, and that their wives are going to be cooking. And they have to get into the woods and cut wood for their wives to be able to make a fire and to where in the stove to where they can cook. And they have to do that every day, And when I say mountains, it's not like our mountains here. We'll build houses 8,000 to 9,000 feet above sea level. And they walk that all the time. It's pretty wild. They are wonderful people to deal with. Absolutely.
The Facebook feed that we have going on, you guys have some fans who have checked in. Shane and Vanessa. Vanessa is here, and Brooke Long. I recognize that name there, Brooke Burdette Long.
Correct,
so
yes.
yeah, you guys have some folks who have checked in, and we're glad to have them watching, and everybody else is, as we tell the story here of the Walk a Mile project. What's the future hold for you guys?
Oh, the future is a damn one day at a time. But we have trips coming up. We have upcoming trips, like my dad said, and I'm taking a medical team in June, the middle of June, for a week. The next week he's coming in, and they're going to be building houses and feeding villages. We have another trip coming up in July with the church out of Kentucky that's going with us, and then also another trip in November. That is right now open to really anyone out there that would like to go with us. And we'll be passing out Christmas presents during that time frame, which is a lot of fun. We get to play Santa Claus. But, yeah, we're just following, really just following God's will for the Walk a Mile project. Just really one day at a time. And if anybody out there that would like to contact us or call us or get some more information, then feel free to, either by our website or also on Facebook at the Walk a Mile Project.
Yeah, and I think probably the easiest way, because all the contact information is on the website.
Absolutely.
So I can just pop that up, and again, it's thewhamproject.org. Eddie, my dad's a preacher.
Is he? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
he pastored the same church in West Virginia for 37 years, and now he is he's retired from that, but still preaching at different places, probably 7-8 times a month. So it's not an occupation; it's a calling, as you know.
That's right.
When you got into it, did you ever think that God was going to lead you in this particular direction?
No, sir. I had no idea. I had served in church in Anderson, and I'd gone to Greenwood, served in a church there, and then I had gone to Atlanta, the Atlanta area, and we were about 20 miles southeast of Atlanta at a church, and a friend of mine had gotten in touch with me about, he's an evangelist from Atlanta, and said, look, I'd like for you to go to Russia with us. My brother and I are taking a team to Russia, and so I that was the furthest thing from my mind. But as I prayed about it, the Lord said, I want you to go there. And I had no idea, Dan, that was going to be such a change in my life, such a breaking point in my life, because the Lord really broke my heart for those people. And I saw people that were desperate. I saw, and I still, when we go to Guatemala, I still see that desperation there in a lot of people's lives. And so when I've been to 8 countries now, and I just got back just a few weeks ago from Norway for the first time, and that's different. That's totally different from going to Guatemala. But as you said earlier, the need is for people to know that Christ loves them, that He died on the cross for them, that He gave His life for them, and that He wants to save us all. He wants to forgive everybody of their sins, and He wants to help us. Life, He didn't create and put us on this earth to try to do life without Him. He has a magnificent world that He's created, and He's got magnificent people that are on it. But the only hope that we have is to know Him and to follow Him and to understand He's here to help us. He's here to change our lives, and He's here to use us. Well, in these 26 years that we have been doing missions, and I've been a pastor for 35 years, is that it has literally let us see a whole different side of the world and changed our perspective on life.
As a preacher's son and a Baptist on top of that, I'm about ready to pass the plate and take up a collection here. We just had church, man. That's the way it goes. Anything else? I know you came prepared with some information. Anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to get out before we wrap it up?
Well, we've talked a lot about us, and I'll let my dad kind of explain what he has in front of him. But anyone can go to our website, what you said, thewhamproject.org, and some of the biggest needs, like we said before, are we build the houses, we feed the villages. Clean water is something that is huge in Guatemala, a big need for. So I'll turn it over to him and kind of but you can access all that information. People can access all that information if they want to donate to any of those, and the cost is on there also. That's a huge need that the Walk a Mile Project has and needs, is the funding.
All right, thank you, Heath. Yep. And Dan, thank you for having us on. And as we share about this, we go to build homes, and that's one of our areas. And it costs $500 to build a 12 by 17 home in Guatemala, and it's made out of tin and wood, and it's got a 2-inch concrete floor to where they'll have dry floors. And we are told that it will last from now on. It's just it's a very durable home that we build there. And then we also provide clean water systems for the families, and it costs $50 for this clean water system. It has a charcoal filter in it that will last a year, and they can have 10 gallons of clean water per day to drink and to cook with. And it changes their life. It totally changes their lives because there's so many parasites and bacteria that's in their water. 70% of the sickness are in the mountains is because of the unclean water. And so we provide that for them and for each family, and that's one of our goals there to do that. We also feed these families, and we can do 100 families for $700. And for that $700, it provides each family enough food for 1 month. And so we have learned from friends and other people that are in Guatemala to where to go shop, and it's able to provide food. They get to come through a line and take a bag, and we'll fill that bag to the top. Plus, also, we provide flip-flops and shoes and those kind of items for them, too. There's 3 things that a man will have. He'll have a pair of rubber boots, and he's going to have a machete, and he's going to have one of those hoes that we were talking about. And his little boy is going to be the same way. And so they're going to be out in the field every day working. And Mom, she's going to be at home helping raise the children and raise and cook and take care of her home and stuff. But most of the women, they wear it's like flip-flops. So we take a lot of flip-flops with us. So our little grandson, who is 11, his name is Easton. Easton started a ministry called Flip-Flops for His Feet over 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now. And since that time, he has been just gathering up flip-flops. People would send him money and stuff like that. Well, we've sent over 6,000 pairs of flip-flops to Guatemala through his little ministry. Well, he had a chance to go in November, this past November, to go. And it just, I mean, he's seen us go, and he's watched videos and seen pictures and all, but it has really changed his life. He just saw kids that we had talked about. These are the children that you're going to meet. And really, he just became a rock star is what happened in Guatemala. So, but in those things right there, those are the needs that we have, and we appreciate people helping us to provide those needs. And
so if people want to donate or want to get more information, again, just
they can go to the website.
Right back to the website, thewhamproject.org. I appreciate you guys coming in and spending some time with us. I know Heath and I have been talking about doing this for a while, and as is usually the case in day-to-day life, time kind of gets away from you a little bit. And when basketball season rolls into baseball season, my wife says, just reintroduce yourself to me when baseball's over because we're on the road so much. But I appreciate your patience, number one, and secondly, your willingness to come in here and talk about this. No, this is not a sports topic, but it is a topic with a higher purpose, as we talked about. And I'm just grateful that there are folks like you doing what you're doing, and that there are people who are supporting you. And I know you can always use more support. So hopefully this will trigger something with some folks who are listening, and they'll want to check in with you and see how they can help.
We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Anything else that we left out?
I believe that's it, Dan.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you again for
right.
having us.
That Heath and Eddie Burdette, and again, the Walk a Mile Project, the website there at the bottom, thewhamproject.org. If you have any questions, something that we didn't cover, you can get the contact information there, and somebody will get back with you very, very soon. Find out how you can help in this mission, and whether it's financially or whether it's getting a group to go and do it yourself at the Walk a Mile Project's website, thewhamproject.org.